Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on when or where are you watching or listening to this. It's been a while since the last time. A lot of things happen in the meantime, but we are happy to be back. I'm happy to be back. And today we have an amazing guest. Her name is Chris Weier, and she's an innovation expert. With over 20 years of experience in designing of digital products, Chris is a passionate entrepreneur based in Copenhagen, dedicated to the field of innovation. Her career has been driven by a commitment to helping clients solve their most significant challenges through co-creation of cross-functional teams. And Chris leverages design-led methods, including design sprints, workshop facilitation, future thinking, and design thinking. As an innovation coach, she specializes in guiding businesses through the complexities of today's VUCAs or VUCAs. How do you pronounce that?
VUCA. It's like an acronym for volatile, uncertain, complex. And ambiguous. So, yeah.
We're gonna talk about this. Yeah. Empowering decision makers and managers to navigate new technologies and trends with confidence and clarity. Oh boy, if we need this. Chris has founded several companies since 2007 to constantly learn and be challenged. And she thrives in uncertain and creative environments and excels in executed at a fast pace. We believe that there's a solution to every problem that we share. She inspires others to join her in creating change using design-led innovation. And today we're together because, of course, in the quest for sustainability and to solve complex issues, and I love that acronym, it's obvious that innovation is a key part to it. So my first question is obvious, but before, welcome to Chris Weier. How are you, Chris?
Thank you so much, Pablo, for this great introduction, and thanks for inviting me.
It's been a pleasure. We met with Chris in Copenhagen, and I was impressed. I have been a part of one of her workshops. Sometimes it's very clear what you have to do, but it's not clear how to start with it. She gave a fantastic framework for a head start to activate the innovation process. So I thought it was a given to invite her here. So the first question is an obvious one, like how is it that you start, and what is an innovation designer and a coach?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I always have hard times explaining this, and I think my title has changed over the past years 1,000 times. So I think the first word that you read is innovation, and it's always this like big word and big expectations, because I think you always think about vertical innovation. When you read it, you get a bit scared. You think about Steve Jobs and the iPhone, or Henry Ford and the car, so all these amazing innovations. And there's a lot of pressure, I think, connected to this word. But honestly, I see my role rather in enabling and empowering leaders to become better at coping with this VUCA world that we just mentioned. So radically changing and constantly changing, a lot of new challenges that we have to face. So how can we break them down into smaller bits and bytes, and how can we design processes and guide leaders through this like step-by-step process to solve these challenges, co-create solutions. So I see myself as like, I think a bit more of a coach or facilitator in the fields of innovation. So as you already mentioned, I love facilitating these processes with co-creation and bringing together diverse teams and using tools from design, facilitate these processes, and use methods to also encourage people to change their mindset and to use the right tools to foster this more innovative mindset and introduce the skill set also to their teams to then, of course, when I'm not there anymore, solve the challenges by themselves.
I think that's one of the most important parts of your job, because what is the main difference between a regular designer and an innovation designer? Like what's into it?
Design is maybe a bit like innovation. Everybody has this picture of something when you say design. I mean, I say designer, everybody thinks I'm designing applications or nice clothes, right? Or but actually none of that. So it's more about using methods that designers are used to, and it starts with small things like curiosity and researching and diving deep into topics, and then figuring out actually how to, first of all, frame a challenge. So how do you do that? Because many people, I think, start with ideation because that's the fun part, right? But first we need to figure out what are we actually solving here. So yeah, so I'm not a designer as you would assume. I'm not making nice looking things, but I enable my clients to do this. So it's more designer of processes and workshops and co-creation.
And how did it happen then that you gravitated towards coaching? Because at some point, maybe you realized that coaching was a big part of the process, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And it's really funny because actually the funny thing is it was the other way around. So I've always been someone who embraces change, and that's probably also why I ended up in the fields of innovation. So change has always been a big part of my life since I was a kid. I moved a lot of times. I had to adapt to new environments, new people, which wasn't the easiest part. And then when I was older, I deliberately chose actually to change countries and to move to Denmark. And then I realized that I'm not afraid of change, which obviously a lot of people are, which is natural because change is always connected with uncertainty. So I feel like, okay, I have it kind of in my DNA. And then I also realized that living in a foreign country, and I look back at my childhood, moving from one city to the other, coming into a class as the new kid, I think I always had to have this kind of openness and curiosity. All this actually led to me exploring the fields of coaching, also because I love helping people, supporting people, solving their issues. And then I started this coaching education. And while I was doing that, I also realized that it ties so much to my actual work. So what I've been doing the past years in innovation is basically the same as life coaching. So, analyzing and observing and reflecting things to people, breaking bigger things down into smaller pieces, figuring out what is actually the big goal and how do we get there. And also, I think there's such a parallel in you have to facilitate people, you have to facilitate how they work together and make them open up, understand each other better. So yeah, basically it's just like puzzle pieces that fit into each other, and so now I can actually take both worlds and merge them in a way. And yeah, I could actually hosted an offsite event 2 weeks ago in Germany, and that was the first thing that I actually did after I started this coaching education. And I realized how much of my coaching education I brought into this, because the topic was also team building, and I had to facilitate some conversations and some discussions and some interrelational things that were going on between people. And my coaching background in that way also helped me to, I think, get better at understanding different characters of people and how we can match them and make them understand each other and work together. And I think that's the ground base of innovation as well.
You talked about change, right? And how we are, of course, life is change, but we don't like change that much, right? As humans. So what are the main blocks and what are the main challenges? And maybe a provocative question: do we want innovation? Because we are in Italy right now, and it's something that it's very fought actually within organizations and especially institutions, at least here. Does it happen globally, or is it just a phenomenon of here? What do you think it happens in people's minds when we talk about innovation?
Yeah, I mean, you already mentioned it is definitely, innovation is always connected to, you don't really know what the outcome is, right? I mean, nobody could tell. I brought this example the other day at the DTU when I had a lecture there about Henry Ford and the car. And it's this obvious thing, and we've read it 1,000 times. If he had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, and then he comes around and brings the car. So, or Steve Jobs with the iPhone. And I think it's always connected to uncertainty. So because those guys did not know if anyone would even buy their new products, their innovations. So of course, it's connected to a lot of uncertainty. And also, of course, business leaders usually don't really like to be in that space, because it means there are no real KPIs. You can't really track what's going on. You don't know how much money you need to spend until there is something innovative on the market that's actually working. So of course, there is a lot connected to that, and a lot of fears, and we are human beings, so we are fearful of change, because that's how it is. So yeah, but I think, without innovation, where would we be, right? Then we would still live somewhere in the woods and only cook on fire. So yeah, for me, it's just natural that we need to explore things and explore new technologies and develop further. And also, we could relate it to life, right? Someone staying in the same place his whole life, doing the same things, having the same people around, how boring would that be? So I think it's just all about this journey of exploring and creating and developing. And so yeah, for me, innovation is definitely needed. But I know your point. Of course, it's one of the things that also where budgets get cut immediately when there are some economical shifts or things going on not so well. And innovation hubs or labs in companies are always the first to be closed down. So yeah, that's just an unfortunate fact.
It's clear that I like the VUCA acronym, because I feel that pretty much living in a perpetual VUCA right now, right? Can you tell me about this this new acronym, and where did it start, and why innovation is important to manage this VUCA?
If you can remember the morning you woke up and read about the war in Ukraine, because that's like one thing that really stuck to my head, because I can remember that because I had this conversation with a colleague at my office in that morning, and we were thinking about what could actually happen and what implications could it have, like on our country, on our businesses, on our lives. And I use that as an example for a long while, the past years, to show people how fast our world is changing. So these linear processes we used to use for strategy or for planning, we can't use them anymore, because our world is not like that. So things can just, change in a sudden, and we need to adapt. And the general problem is that we tend to just always only react, because we are so busy in our daily tasks and implementing a new CMS system or a new ERP system or rolling out SAP, whatever. And we tend to forget to look into the future and to be able to better cope and also be more proactive. So I think that's the answer to your question, whereas I think I actually forgot what you asked. That came to my mind.
It was
the VUCA world.
How innovation, like we have VUCA here and innovation there, and why do they connect, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So that was my explanation. So I think, so we need innovation to be able to be more proactive and design our future, because there is not one future, right? We cannot look into this like crystal ball and forecast, okay, like this is exactly what's happening tomorrow. So we still need to look into what are possible futures and what are also futures we would like to see, and then we can do our best to actually develop into this direction. And that can start with ourselves, but of course also this aligns to our businesses, so we can try to move into this direction and support this kind of future, because we don't have to wait for something to happen and put some things on us. So we should be more aware of, especially leaders or people in leadership positions, to look into possible futures and be ready whatever happens next.
Perfect. Yeah, I completely agree. It's very clear the difference between speeds, right? The speed of technological development, for example, and the speed of coping with it, and how different are these two paces. So it's so important to have some framework to deal with it. So talking about framework, what do you think are the main obstacles of innovation, even for institutions or for the single persons?
I just talked about this with a client this morning in a coffee meeting, because we were also talking about AI, and we came to the conclusion that all of us, we could of course potentially explore what it means for us. We could actually work with AI tools. We can use them for our daily lives and make our jobs easier or better or perform better. So that's on us. I think like everybody can of course do that, but of course you also need to be able to do it, and you need to be kind of like know what you're doing. And I think we are in the space where we tend to sometimes forget that so many people working in different spaces than digital, they have no clue. So they need to be educated first. So as long as we don't have the right education, we can also, of course, not get rid of those fears of new technologies. And then, of course, we don't start trying things out. So the same, and that goes with everything that's kind of new and innovative. So, and then organizational level, I think the main obstacles are always, so how do we set up or live innovation, right? Do we have an innovation hub, or do we have a department that is only responsible for innovation, or does everybody wear the head of innovation and has to do something to actually foster innovation in the company? It's definitely a matter of organizational structures and empowerment, and also of course the support of the leadership. How much support do they give? I've seen companies where people are absolutely, they know they need to be more innovative, they need to try new things out, but they don't get the support. So that can, of course, also be an obstacle. Yeah, and then, of course, we also have obstacles in regards of systems and data and all those IT challenges. And so sometimes mostly it takes bigger corporations, of course, much longer to establish processes and introduce methods to be more innovative. But of course, smaller companies that don't have all these hierarchies and structures and legacy systems, for them it's much easier to be that little speedboat and just try things out and plant some seeds and see where it's taking you. And that's also what I get reflected from my clients that I do these innovation safaris with, where they indulge into a more innovative space for a couple of days and then have to somehow be able to transport it back to their companies and their environment. So I know a lot about the struggles that are going on there.
I think it's very overwhelming also because the speed of innovation outside of an institution is much faster. And for example, in the realm of AI, but just to name one, the technologies update pretty much every week, and you see news every single day almost of something new that is coming to overcome and make some other task, that something that last week was released and it's already old. So I'm guessing that there's a very important issue with speed. Is there a correct speed for innovation? How do institutions and companies and people can deal with this speed issue?
Yeah, that's a really valid point. I mean, even for us, I don't know how you handle it, but even for me, it's kind of difficult to, always be up to date with things. And you can subscribe to 100 newsletters, but you never have the time to consume them all or even try out things. So that's definitely a big issue. But I think the smallest step you could do is just to foster that environment where you are actually allowed to try things out and to learn, and of course to fail and then get up again, try something else. And I think that's like the smallest step you could take, or you should take, in companies, to have that environment where this is allowed, because otherwise you will never get to understanding how things really work and how you can really change something and invent something new. And that starts with like the simple, I mean, you can even say implementing some kind of design thinking in a company, yeah, and just try out, see, okay, where are needs that we don't meet? I mean, innovation doesn't have to be the invention of the next iPhone. It could also mean that you look at your products and figure out, okay, talk to real clients, figure out where are current challenges that we need to solve. Of course, also in regards of our business, but of course also in regards of our customers. And then implement those little test balloons where you can, see if the ideas you bring up in your diverse team actually work out. And that's for me innovation. It starts with these kinds of things. And then talking about new technologies and how to follow up on that. I think it's also a lot about just trying things out and using technology, because I mean, if I hadn't used ChatGPT for the last, I don't know how many years it's now on the market, but, so I think I was one of the first users as well. I wouldn't know either how it works. And I would probably also be afraid, And I hear from so many people, they say like, oh yeah, I think, I know kind of how it works, but not really. And there's this fear again. And so I think it's also about allowing your employees to use these new technologies and to also maybe implement it on a team level, to start there and see how can you use it in your team, in your daily job, to make your work more efficient, and then learn from that and grow from there.
It's really interesting that you said about almost like innovation is relative to the person that is implementing it, because for some companies something can be innovative, and for another company it can be also legacy in terms of where they are in regarding of an evolution of a process, right? So it doesn't mean that they have to become huge strides, for example, right? So there's like a progressive way to evolve into implementing innovative solutions, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, of course. I mean, I sometimes, of course, I have clients that are very far in the process that, have already implemented, for example, AI in their products. And they tell me, okay, I don't need to, learn this or that. That's kind of too simple. We need to start at another level. But then, of course, you have a lot of companies that are absolutely not there yet. And so you always have to see, okay, where are people and where are companies and where's the easiest starting point, so to say.
Let's talk about a little bit more on a global scale. For example, the challenge of sustainability, that is, of course, a topic for us is really important. What is the relationship between innovation and solving big sustainability challenges?
So I mean, without innovation, we can't solve these challenges because they are just too huge. So it started like so many years ago with like, let's for example, just look at this whole energy transition. You know how Denmark, for example, could become so big in wind power. So that's also innovation. So, and without innovation, we would have like all the problems that other countries have at the moment. So that's the one part of it. So that's technology. So we need to look into technology to be able to have a little chance at least to solve those big challenges. And also like from another perspective, from the perspective of, okay, what could be processes or tools we could use. And here we also have to think about, okay, what does innovation mean here? Because it doesn't always have to be technology. It could also mean innovating processes and using different tools. And here I always bring in like strategic design. So meaning the methods I mentioned initially at the beginning today, methods that we use as designers and that can really foster innovation. And that could be, small things like sometimes it just starts with bringing people from like public and private sector together, bringing people together with different roles, different backgrounds, different experiences, different knowledge, and then talk about a concrete challenge together. Because I think too often we try to solve big issues in our own little cubicles in our company where everybody is thinking in the same way. So, and it starts also with these like simple things.
It's interesting how it becomes almost like a game theory issue when a company is big and there's like a verticality and you have seniority and ranks and all this type of relationships between people. How does it work in terms of the ideal framework to make an organization thrive into an innovative process? Because I can imagine, for example, there's always a spectrum of people. For example, the early adopter, and then you have the slackers and in the Gaussian bell. There's a lot of friction, I'm guessing, between these two types of people. So sometimes somebody that presents an innovative process might even be looked as threatening or something that is rejected. What's the best way to deal with situations?
I mean, I don't know if I have like the golden recipe. I think if I had, I would be really rich right now because then I could just implement it everywhere. I think, I mean, what is definitely important is, so first of all, that, you have a leadership team that understands this and like the importance and also supports it all the way through and is a good role model. And then, of course, you need a lot of people in the company and different spaces that actually have this right mindset of embracing change and being curious and not being fearful. And then you have to create like also those diverse teams where you bring together people with these different backgrounds, maybe also different mindsets, to get this maybe a bit of tension, but not too much. So because of course You also see companies where you have a handful of people who are called innovation managers, and then they don't get the support they need, and they just get frustrated because everybody around them just hates them and doesn't want to work with them. So of course it is a lot about bringing the right people together, and having that kind of growth mindset, and also the right soil to plant the seeds for innovation. Yeah, and I think that's the best I can describe it. And then of course then there are different ways how to set it up in an organizational context, and how to organize it, and how to institutionalize it. And that's, I think, so much dependent on size of companies, on what they do, on the people that are working there, on hierarchies. So yeah, I don't think there's like this golden, as I said, recipe or rule.
Well, you mentioned that smaller companies usually have an advantage in these terms because they have a more flexible structure, right? So they don't have so many legacy technologies, for example, so they can explore more and change easier, right? So that's some good news in a world that is being crowded with big tech, and where it's getting harder and harder to compete with the moguls of technology, for example. So talking about more about society in general, what do you think about anti-intellectualism and disinformation and this existential dread that is going around in society when problems seem like unsolvable, right? Like they are too big, too difficult, and there's a need for a consensus that doesn't seem to be close. And especially there are movements that are actively, creating some sort of contrast to technology, science, the anti-intellectualism movement. How this works with or blocks innovation, and what can be done?
Yeah, very existential question here. So, I mean, we already said that, innovation is always about something new, and something that you haven't seen before. So something that you yesterday didn't know would exist today. So it probably draws skeptics, and draws people that are scared. We've seen this in many times in human history, that this, of course, pulls together more of those people and creates disinformation. And then, of course, as I said before, I think we also tend to forget that not everybody understands all these things, as we, both of us, might do, because we have another education. We have been working in digital for a long time. So, of course, for us, it's easier also to differentiate and understand things. And for so many people, it's not. And then they get scared. And, of course, they listen to those people who, foster their fears, probably. I think we've also seen in the past that not all technology, all innovation is good or brought good things into our lives. And I think it's also kind of, at the moment, we don't really know where's all this taking us, and how can even the two of us in maybe a couple of months or in a year differentiate between what is misinformation, what is fake, what is generated by AI, what is an immersive advertiser that's just playing with the data it has, because Meta and co have been collecting our personal data for years. So yeah, I think, I can understand that there is a resistance towards innovation, and I think the only way to mitigate this is to educate more, to talk more about it, and also to make people aware of that. You always have to think about ethics as well, and you always have to think about, you have to take this decision for yourself. Am I going to use something, or am I only using it because of the sake of it being there? This kind of it's called a technological determinism. So just using some new technology because we can, but I think we should always ask ourselves, what are the implications?
Is it like a technological FOMO, or is it even worse than that? Well, because one thing is to say, okay, I have no other choice but using it, and a different one is like, oh my God, I'm not using it, and everybody's using it. So these two things are interacting, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you probably also have friends who try to get off social media, for example, and have they succeeded? No. Everybody's kind of coming back or trying things out, and then realizing they can't live without it because everybody else is there. So when your friends are using WhatsApp or Messenger, so what are you supposed to do? Not communicate anymore? And I think that's kind of really it's a challenge.
Talk about your work. What is it the thing that you love the most? Because I'm guessing that you meet a lot of people, very different people. How is your typical day at work?
What I love it most when I get a challenge, when a client comes to me and has this like big thing on the table that they would like to solve, because I also get reflected by my clients that I'm very good at, just breaking down, or also like very good at quickly understanding what's going on and then trying to, bring things down into like smaller bricks that are more consumable. And I love to design processes and co-creation to actually enable my clients to solve their problems by themselves. And that's also like life coaching. It's the same kind of thing. So just trying to also dive deep into the space and bring a lot of curiosity to understand what's going on, talk a lot to people like inside companies, stakeholders, and of course also a lot to users. I love doing research, also looking into possible futures. That's also a big part of my life. Or my work life. And then, just bringing people together, sit in a room and work together. And that's what gives me most energy, to see, how people from different backgrounds, different departments, with different knowledges and perspectives come together. Like 2 weeks ago, when we had those groups that had never even met before, it was a remote only company. So it was the first time they ever met, which made it especially wonderful because we also did a lot of team building. So I could see that over the week, these people, they really grew together because of what I had designed as a program. So, and that's also something that really touches me, to see how people, like in the end, after day 5.5, they were giving each other a love bomb, I call it. So everybody had to give one of their teammates a little message, thank them for the week. And then everybody was just, lying into each other's arms and crying and so overwhelmed by the great work they had done and by how close they'd come to each other. So yeah, that's the moments I value most in my work, when I see that something happens inside of people and they really change their mindset.
It's amazing how sometimes, like I said in the beginning, sometimes it's really clear that you have to do something. But one thing is the idea of actually doing something, and another very different one is to feel that you can do it, because that part of doing it yourself is something that I consider is absolutely mandatory in terms of moving forward into a process and into real improvement and real goal completions, right? How does it work? Do you think that people is like pessimistic by nature, maybe, or don't trust themselves? What is going on at the moment? Because I saw it in the experience that we did in Copenhagen, but I'm guessing that it happens a lot in different scenarios and different places. How does it work, this transformation, inner transformation of people, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends very much on the people themselves. So there are people, for example, who are very resistant to working with other people. Then you have people who have this false belief they are not creative. Then you have people maybe who are a bit shy, so who don't really want to, talk about things with others that they don't know so well. So I think for me, my biggest task is always to figure out who is what kind of type and how can I help them to get out of their shell. And that can be in different ways. So for example, this like false belief of we are not creative, because I mean, we got kind of like at school took this belief from us, this trust in ourselves. So being told that we are not good at art. So after that, nobody ever dared to draw anymore. So there's a lot of exercises that you can do to bring people, take them back to this feeling of, oh, wow, I create this, So this is how I always start those kind of sessions, for example. Or when you have people who are more resistant to working in groups or sharing things, there are also a lot of exercises you can do on how to facilitate this, or you can give them the space to, do things on their own first and then share. So, or maybe share on post-its. And so you don't really have to interact in the beginning, and then we can, build it up. So maybe, it has a lot to do with psychology, I just realized. So, to take away all those, you can maybe call it just all false beliefs, right, that we have when we get into these kind of workshops, because we're not used to working like that. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you can see, and like always, to be honest, I've never had an experience where someone didn't change during those kind of experiences. And even if it was just a 2-hour workshop, and I've always had like this one person who was like, no, I don't want to do this, and then afterwards they were so proud of what they had actually created. And that's just the amazing thing about it.
Absolutely. And also I'm thinking that probably people is too used to just listen to people, and that's kind of boring, whether if they are hands-on something, then it's completely different. They feel like empowered, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's also why even a webinar for me, it needs to be some kind of interactive. And I do a lot of webinars with the Innovation Lab, for example, and we have a tool where we only have a chat. So I don't even see people in the webinar, and they of course don't see each other. So the only thing that I know is that there's a chat box. So, but still I come up with ideas on how to actually use this chat box to integrate them and make them do something active. Because I mean, who wants to listen to someone talking for an hour? Think no one wants that.
What do you think about, because you say life coach, and right now it's getting a bad fame because there's a lot of also snake oil salesmen right around, and all the crypto bros that are scamming people, etc. So it's complicated, to convey maybe what is happening in this type of workshops, right? And also maybe the feeling is that you are in a lab with machines and strange stuff, and doing innovation like with robots or stuff, and it's way easier than that, right? It's regular tools, regular instruments, and like you said, more human interaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that after COVID, people are getting less used to interact with each other like live, and that's kind of slowing down innovation maybe?
It's a good question. I mean, I think a big challenge definitely is that this shift from being at the office every day with your colleagues and being close to each other, from some companies being completely remote to, leaving it up to their employees when they come into the office. And I think it also differentiates a lot from country to country. But of course, what I hear now, I mean, even when I talk to a CEO of a remote only company, and they said, okay, the biggest challenge we have is how do we actually, still create the space where people even know who is in their team and who they can talk to and who they can ask, and get that kind of team spirit that we had before. So I think it definitely has a lot to do with this. And I mean, I've always been a fan of working from home when I need my space to be creative, or you just have some quiet. But I can also see that, of course, there's a lot of challenges when we don't have this human connection. And I mean, yeah, we both took part in the 23 conference here, where it was all about human connection. And I think it's just so much more amazing what happens when people are in the same room in a physical space than when you are just online, because of course you can't sense so what's the other person's mood today. Do they actually still follow, or are they somewhere else with their thoughts? And there are so many challenges that a facilitator has, but also of course people even sitting together in a meeting, because you can't really get a gist of, okay, what's actually going on with this person at the moment. And so I think, yeah, definitely that has brought a lot of challenge, and maybe VR can solve it at one point. So I don't know, but at the moment I think I can see that definitely companies that will bring people together in physical space being better off.
We're reaching the end of this conversation, which is fantastic. Thank you. I would like to leave the people who's listening some good advice about how to tackle innovation in their realms and in their domains, especially for companies, because I'm thinking, when you're alone and you want to innovate, it's up to you. But when you're working in a company or an institution, there are all these cogs that have to work with each other, and it's quite difficult, I'm guessing, right? So depending if it's coming top to bottom or bottom to top, what is your advice for these companies that want to innovate? How should they start this process?
Yeah, good question. I think first of all, what I said before, reducing fear by educating and trying out things, being curious, and also allow the curiosity. Of course, also looking into, okay, what is the right strategy? So do I build like an innovation hub where people are allowed to be playful, be a bit crazy, and try stuff out, and then take it into the main organization, but just allowing everybody to bring innovation or more like a broader thinking into their daily lives, giving them the space to maybe, try out certain tools, have a certain amount of hours a week where they can, just build something or work with something new, explore something new, explore new technology, maybe look into AI, experiment with it. Maybe also, just foster exchange, allowing people to connect about this topic, That could be like an innovation day, or maybe just innovation breakfast, or I don't know, bringing people together. And you always have people who know a lot more than others. So just, bringing this knowledge to the crowd, basically having those advocates maybe who, encourage others to also look into new things. And sometimes just dropping this KPI driven mentality, always jumping from one quarter planning to the next without looking left and right, because that's the moment when you get caught by our VUCA world again. So respecting that we need to have the space and the time to educate ourselves. I think that's like maybe the most important thing. And I think too often we don't allow it, because it's also up to us as individuals. How often do we say, oh, we don't have those 5 minutes to meditate, so where would we get the 30 minutes to look into it, how to use maybe ChatGPT to improve our work? So to give ourselves the permission to be more curious and try some things out. I actually recently found this newsletter that you could subscribe to 100 Days of AI or something. So it was like a step-by-step guide to try some AI stuff out. So, just look for those kind of things and do it for yourself as you would meditate, just do that. So it starts with the individuals, I think, with every one of us.
Fantastic. Can we wrap it up with this VUCA world? So it was volatile. Can you repeat it to me?
Yeah, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
Yeah, absolutely. We live in a VUCA world. I think I'm going to make a t-shirt like that.
Yeah, I love it. I order one.
All right. Who would you like to see in a space like this in this podcast? Because the whole spirit of this podcast is to bring people. Now that I think about it, it's one of the advices that you gave, right? The spirit of this, bringing people from different domains and share their expertise, to learn from each other, right? So what's the people that we should be interviewing right now, in your opinion?
That's a good question. I'm always very inspired by meeting startup founders, to be honest, and they always tend to inspire my clients as well. We do innovation safaris. I recently met two amazing guys here in Copenhagen who, they didn't even tell the story of their company or their products. It was not about that at all. It was more about their personal story and about their mindset and about how they run their businesses, how they build their businesses, how they get ideas, and the whole the personal background was so much more inspiring to my clients than the whole what do they actually do in this company, that I think nobody remembers that, but everybody remembers their personal stories.
That's great. And then you have to give me the name of these people.
Yeah, I can send them to you later.
Fantastic. Okay, Chris, do you think we left something out of this? Something important that we have to convey?
I can't think of anything. No, I think we touched so many things. And I'm sorry, I'm such a fast speaker, I always realize. But,
Not at all.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, but thank you so much.
I'm sorry?
Thank you so much. It was a fantastic conversation, Pablo.
Thank you. Really and I think we will probably have you back here. Well, for those who are listening, of course, the mandatory self-plug of asking to follow and to like. We are on Instagram, and recently we are also on YouTube. The podcast is in Spotify, in Apple, and other directories that I don't remember now, but I will probably put them here on the screen. Chris, thank you so much once again for being with us. Thank you for everybody who's watching. Until the next time.
Thank you and have a nice day. Hope to see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.